At the heart of understanding how Adobe Illustrator and other vector-based drawing packages works is understanding the difference between the different types of art, a raster image versus a vector base or vector image. A raster image is based on a line of pixels that are identified with different colors. Now, a raster is a line of pixels, so if you have several lines of pixels in a grid creating a rectangular shape such as this item, you'll have a continuous tone type of image, and that's how programs like Adobe Photoshop operate. They operate basically, with a few exceptions, using raster image graphics, also known as bitmap graphics. And if we zoom in here, I'm going to zoom in using my zoom tool. Notice you can easily see the pixels here in my graphic object. Now, Adobe Illustrator operates using an entirely different type of graphic manipulation, and that is it uses vector-based graphics. Now, a vector-based graphic is really based on a shape or an outline of a shape. And if I click on one of these objects, one of the nice abilities of these vector-based graphics is the ability to edit individual shapes. And notice when I click on one of these shapes, it's a particular object, I can move that object around. And other things that I can do is edit individual anchor points which make up the shape. So these little dots here, these dots are the anchor points, and they're completely editable. If I can click on one of them, I can click and drag it out and edit the shape, and in this case I'm reshaping my shape. So that's a nice feature of vector-based graphic. Also, vector-based graphics aren't tied to the world of raster images or pixels. They're called device-independent type of graphics, so they depend on your output device's resolution to create a sharp image, as opposed to when you first design your file, giving it a particular resolution and having a bitmap image be stuck with that resolution. So vector-based graphics are device-independent in resolution, and they're object-oriented, so I can click on these objects to select them and edit them individually. And I'll just zoom in. And notice when I zoom in to my vector-based object, how sharp it is. Because since it's not based on a particular fixed grid of pixels, you can see here that this is a grid of pixels. My vector-based graphic can be as sharp as it needs to be, or as sharp as my output device is. Here is a little vector-based graphic I made down here at the bottom of my image. And what I'm going to do is copy this vector-based graphic by holding down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on the PC and creating a copy. I'm going to go back to my original, and I'm going to go to the Object menu and choose Rasterize. And Rasterize, of course, is another way of saying convert it into a bitmap image. And I'm going to use screen resolution, which is fairly low resolution. You would probably use a higher resolution in the real world, but for the purposes of this demo, we're going to stick with a low resolution. And I'm going to go to the corner here, hold down the Shift key, and go to the corner handle and enlarge it. So here's my enlarged bitmap graphic. And notice if we zoom in to my bitmap graphic, of course, we're seeing the pixels, because once it's been rasterized or turned into bitmap image, it's stuck with that grid of pixels, and it has to do the best it can to make it look good at a different size. But, of course, the beauty of vector images is if I enlarge this object, and remember that's a vector-based image, my edges stay perfectly sharp. Well, they've changed size a little too much. They're still too small. So I'm going to go back down here and find my tool, which allows me to resize objects here, and choose Scale Strokes as well. And now when I resize this, my stroke should also scale, and indeed it does. And of course, look how sharp that is compared to the bitmap version in the background. And of course, that's super sharp because it's really a vector-based or shape-based object. So, just to reiterate, Adobe Illustrator allows you to create and edit vector-based objects. And vector-based object is based on this outline or shape of an object. And now one of the limitations to vector-based objects is that the outline and the fill can really only have a solid color. Or in this case, we've created a gradient, which Adobe Illustrator has a little trick allowing you to create this gradated effect. But the general rule of thumb is that vector-based objects are solid colored objects. One color for the outlines or stroke and one color for the fill. And that's very different from your bitmap image, which most photorealistic images or continuous tone images will have multiple colored pixels, obviously creating a photographic-like effect. So different types of files create different types of effects, and vector-based objects are tremendous for super sharp designs such as logo graphics or designs that need to be blown up very large, maybe billboard size, without losing their definition or shape.